So the Associated Press released this story, this 2-minute video, where they had analysts discuss Biden's border policy. Let's take a look at this video and then we'll debunk what's really going on here.
The Biden administration was absolutely warned in very clear and certain terms what undoing all of the things the Trump administration had.
Let me just clarify something real quick right up front. If you're seeing any footage, you should not believe any footage you see. Here's why. Journalists are not allowed in facilities. So because journalists aren't allowed in, then all the information that you receive is information that's filtered by someone else. Maybe it's mainstream media. Maybe it's the Associated Press. Maybe it's maybe this is just a video taken from Border Patrol. Who knows? You can't believe it unless you have journalists allowed in these border facilities. So again, if a politician tells you, this is what I saw in the border facility, ignore them. Call them a liar. Tell them, prove it. Prove it. Let the journalists in then. Because the politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, prevent you from being able to have footage like this. So if you see footage like this, ask questions, raise your red flags.
Put in place what would do, along with sending this kind of message south of the border that we're open for business. We're shutting down ICE. We're stopped.
Mike Howell, senior advisor of the Heritage Foundation. That's the analyst. The Heritage, a senior advisor from the Heritage Foundation is going to be your analyst. That's the Associated Press analyst.
Stopping building the wall. Biden's going to take care of you better. All of these things manifest in this very predictable disaster where we have this overcrowding and terrible conditions.
There were efforts by the Obama administration to allow kids and parents to apply for asylum in their home countries. The Trump administration shut those down.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That was a good thing, though. We should understand a lot here what's going on. First off, Immigration Matters is a book that has 0 reviews on Amazon. So just because he's a co-editor doesn't mean that he's an actual author of a book that's just reputable in any way. But I guess he gets to be an analyst now, or one of the analysts that differs on Trump and Biden or something like that. So what is he saying? What is the message that this guy is saying?
To apply for asylum in their home countries. The Trump administration shut those down.
He's criticizing Trump because Trump wasn't okay with putting the kids in Mexico, back in Mexico, while they wait for their asylum process. You know why Trump was not okay with that? You should be not okay with that too, because that violates international law. See, when someone claims asylum, that means they get to stay in your country until they're heard by a judge. So there are legal immigrants. You don't take legal immigrants and deport them. You're not supposed to deport legal immigrants. We should be opening up our borders. That's what we should be doing. But because there's no reason to have a border. There's no reason. There's no justification to have a border. There's no justification to not let immigrants immigrate into the U.S. There's no reason. We work better when we work together, and from each their ability to each their need. That's the whole thing that Karl Marx was trying to say. And so if China, which is only like 2% bigger than us, I think, if they can house 1.4 billion people and we only have 330 million people, then we should be able to have open borders if we do it successfully. Let's let them come in and let's let them have what they need, healthcare, education, everything. Let's give everything to them, and then let's extract from them their abilities. We ask them, what are you good at? Are you good at X, Y, and Z? Oh, cool. Let's try to find you a job in that area, and let's get you a job. And from each their ability to each their need. Karl Marx, that's what he wanted. That said, this guy is saying that Trump was wrong to remove the policy that would allow deporting legal immigrants waiting for their asylum date, for their judgment date. He's not okay with that. That's the thing he's not okay with. That's the thing that this guy, who's not a journalist, if he was a journalist, the thing that he would be saying is, hey, I'm a journalist. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in these border facilities, and they won't let me in. That's what a real journalist would say, because that's what's going on right now. And as you saw, there were instances where Biden was asked by real journalists. This is an example of a real journalist asking real tough follow-up questions. But that's not what this guy is doing. This guy wrote a book called Immigration Matters, which has 0 reviews. No one's buying it. It's not a bestseller book. It's not a book that has any sort of reputation that is important, but for some reason he gets to be an analyst and he gets to talk trash about Trump on the exact thing that he shouldn't be talking trash about. I'm sure there are plenty of other policies you can criticize of Donald Trump, but we shouldn't be deporting people. We shouldn't be taking these kids in these cages and putting and just deporting them. That's not how you solve this problem. The way you solve this problem is you allow them to become immigrants because there's no reason they shouldn't be, because they don't do anything bad. Unless you want to tell me, you want to give me an argument as to why brown people are not good at, producing or something. Is that the argument that you want to make? Because go ahead and make that argument on live TV. I bet you'd sound just as, you do sound just as racist if people actually listen to what this guy is saying. What he's saying is completely racist against brown people in general. This is unacceptable. This guy's opinion is unacceptable. Let's keep going.
The Trump administration wouldn't allow children to come to the United States to seek asylum. So there's been a huge backlog in terms of the numbers of those kids.
And that's a problem. So release them into the U.S.
The Trump administration broke the system for housing kids in non-Customs and Border Patrol kind of facilities and humane facilities. So what we're seeing now
is nothing, because journalists aren't allowed to put cameras here anymore because Joe Biden said, "Oh, do you remember when they showed when they showed these images during Trump's administration? We can't let people with cameras in there. We can't do that. And so instead, we're going to prevent journalists from going in there. So now we know nothing. We know nothing."
Customs and Border Patrol kind of facilities and humane facilities. So what we're seeing now is really the result of 4 years of destruction by the Trump administration.
Actually, what we're seeing now is nothing. We're seeing nothing. Again, he's not a journalist, and he's not even talking like a journalist. He has no reputation. He's just a random person talking on the Associated Press, and he gets a bunch of views because this is 1.62 million subscribers here.
What the Trump administration did with the asylum system is they made it very, very strong in that it looked for cases where people were actually eligible. It tried to cut down the amount of cases whereby people would claim asylum as a vehicle for illegal immigration.
So what he's advocating for is Trump's policy. He's advocating for Trump's policy. What you don't all notice, if you're still in support of Joe Biden, what you're not noticing yet is that Joe Biden is trying to advocate for Trump's immigration policy, which is racist. Biden is doing the whole Mexicans are racist things, but he's not actually saying it. He's doing it in policy. He's trying to advocate right now. The guy from the Heritage Foundation is trying to advocate for making it more difficult to claim asylum, even though that violates international law. Asylum is defined not by the U.S., but by international law. So you don't get to just change the definitions and then get to deport more people. Oh, let's take in only 10% by making the definition this, and then we'll just kick the other 90% out. That's violating international law. That's how you violate international law. This is so gross. This is so gross.